We are truly in the golden age of smartphone photography. Today, we will compare the Find X6 Pro to the Vivo X90 Pro Plus. This is part one of
the breakdown.
I know that some of you are waiting on this video to make a decision, and I had to reshoot it a couple of times. There's been a couple of updates on both phones during testing, so I wanted to make sure that we were at a level playing field because I knew they're making active changes. So I'll probably end up hosting photos that were taken throughout this process, and I'll show some of them here. But what I ended up doing was performing a torture test. So Janet Jackson was in town. I took the whole family there, and that's a really harsh environment. And there was phones that were simply just looking very bad there. The opening act was ludicrous. Most of what I did was shoot video. I did take some photos, but this was a dark environment and the bright lights are changing at all times. There's smoke machines that are making it look a little more atmospheric, and it's really torture for cell phones. However, the good news about my setup is I had two Type 1 sensors, so effectively a ZV-1 in my pocket. So I thought all these shots were pretty decent. LED panels didn't have the Mori in the background. And one of the things I learned afterwards, and that's my fault. So if you look over to the right, that's one of the main cameras from that section. So earlier on in the show, when Luda was on stage, this is center stage, and then this is right stage, and like Janet and Luda are like, you can kind of reach out and touch them. So I had exposed for this part right here, not realizing, because Luda doesn't perform there. He's like, I might as well be 18 years old. He's just running around stage the whole time, sounding like he did when he first came out. So that was my bad that I didn't expose properly here, but I still thought these photos turned out pretty nice. Now this is outside. I thought both pictures, so this is the Vivo X90 Pro Plus. Dynamic range is fine. This is pro mode. I thought there's a lot of detail, everything. And this is a basic photo. This is not something that I think photographers would show off to each other. But this was just, I wanted to see the character of the Vivo side by side. And if you look at the OPPO Find X6 Pro, color temperature, you have a warm shot and you have a cool shot. Although I believe what I saw was closer to the OPPO. These shots are both great. However, I prefer that, and that's my personal preference, I prefer the cool OPPO. And again, let me just say this one more time. A lot of chat has been about how this overexposes shots. Well, in pro mode, it doesn't. And I believe the Vivo overexposes as well, but I think there's gonna be an update. I have to say that I was extremely impressed. So this is a clip, and the differences that you're gonna see is I literally forgot that I had stabilization on all the footage from the OPPO, which was kind of disappointing that I had done that. But if you look at, no matter if I'm showing the OPPO footage or the Vivo footage, it's extremely clear. And this is one thing I noticed with the Vivo X80 Pro. The ability to suppress noise has been really impressive by Vivo. They do a really good job, and shout out to the V and the V1 chip, just phenomenal. And I know they're using Mars Silicon on the OPPO, but I just have to say I'm really impressed with Vivo. Now with the OPPO, same thing. Both phones are worthy. And like I said, you can see people in the background holding up their phones, and I'm right there just a few feet away. Like, it may seem like I'm a little bit further because 23 millimeter is kind of wide, so it seems like I'm farther away, but I'm literally right there. But the shadow detail is very good in this type of environment. So remember, everything that you see as far as lights is coming from the stage, and you see this blue cast over the audience and all that. Everything that you see is pro mode, and if you look, you can start to see that Luda's shoes are overexposed, and that's because he's closer to center stage and I was set up for the right part of the stage. So here's another shot of the Vivo. You can see that exposure is not the best here. It was kind of tough with those white outfits that they were wearing because they were flooding so much light when they would get to center stage. But here's the OPPO, and in this one I actually color graded. So I shot it in log format and I color graded, and I did the same thing with the Vivo, and they both color graded nicely. I think the OPPO is a little bit easier, and that's not to say that that means the OPPO is better. some log formats might be harder to grade, but you have more dynamic range to play with. So, and I just thought the footage came out really nicely for cell phone footage. It was funny, everybody's standing up the whole time and the people behind me are not standing. I'm standing and they're just looking at me. I've got grid lines, I've got histogram on, and they could see the footage on my phone and it looked way different, because what I would do is I would record, make sure everything was set up correctly, and then go back to recording. So I would record for about a minute or two, maybe record a song, then go back and watch what I filmed. So they're seeing everybody else in struggle mode because they've zoomed in on their main sensor and it's like pretty much noise. And you can see a lot of this result on YouTube. It's hard for me to go against Vivo because Vivo has been doing such a great job, but Vivo has competitors now. And the thing about Vivo that's great is Vivo will push OPPO and Xiaomi. They're the type of company that if they get leapfrogged in any way, they respond. So the Vivo X100 Pro will be coming out, and I expect no less than it will be a much better camera system than their existing. And when I say they're existing, there are things that are better here, things that are better here. I lean towards the OPPO. The Sony IMX90 that's used on the supporting sensors on the OPPO gives the ultra wide a distinct advantage, especially in low light. In spite of the fact that the Vivo seems to have less noise, but if you do or are a fan of portrait mode, you're gonna get more background blur on the OPPO Find X6 Pro. However, you'll get a more natural and less beauty effect on the Vivo. So less blur, but more. The main sensor on the Vivo X90 Pro Plus leans to warm, and the OPPO leans to cool. I always lean towards cool, but that is a matter of personal preference. Finally, there's a lot of chatter about the OPPO overexposing in some shots, and I found that that was true in both devices. So a lot of times what I would find is when I would go into pro mode, I would always have the shutter go or a little bit faster than what the OPPO or Vivo were doing. So since I use pro mode, it's a moot point for me. But expect an update on both phones because there's been enough chatter about this. I have to say again, this year is crazy when it comes to cameras. With the rumor that the iPhone and the Pixel Pro will support a sensor size just over 1 inch, we are again in the olden age. If you found this video helpful, sound off in the comments. And also, if you want to check out more videos, click here. Now, it's time for me to check on my 13 Ultra order, and with that, I'm out.